The firefighter had just finished his shift and was about to leave, but as Ho-cheon walked through the hallway, he suddenly heard a strange sound coming from room 604. A bad feeling immediately arose. Ho-cheon cautiously approached to check. Suddenly, the murderer rushed out like a cornered animal. Before Ho-cheon could react, he was violently attacked by the murderer. The sharp pain blurred Ho-cheon's vision, but Ho-cheon still tried to hold the murderer back and quickly dialed the coin police number. That action made the murderer mad. He stabbed Ho-cheon again, fatally. At that moment, the police siren sounded outside the building. Hearing the noise, the murderer ran away. Only then did Ho-cheon look inside the room. This was the scene of a brutal murder. The murderer was treating murder as a work of art. He was a dangerous criminal named Zigger Killer. The murderer had committed the crime in March and September last year, but the police were still struggling to catch him. At this time, Ho-cheon was admitted to the hospital. When his wife heard the news, she immediately came to visit him. Fortunately, Ho-cheon was still safe, but he almost became blind forever. Jung-hee advised Ho-cheon that it was best for him to hide the fact that he could see. He should not stand up as a witness. Otherwise, the murderer would come and kill him to cover up the evidence. Jung-hee was no stranger to such people. However, Ho-cheon did not agree. Since this was a case his wife was handling, he wanted to do something to help her. Moreover, Ho-cheon could not let the murderer off the hook. He had to pay for his crimes. Jung-hee would still pursue the murderer, but she also did not want her family to be implicated. Because Jung-hee was not only a police officer, she was also a wife and a mother. If the murderer targets Ho-cheon, even their child will be in danger. Ho-cheon was gradually persuaded by his wife. He finally agreed to her request. After a long time, Ho-cheon's eyes were completely healed. This made Jung-hee very excited. However, this could not be hidden from the reporters. A reporter came to Ho-cheon to ask for news. He wanted to know about Ho-cheon meeting the murderer, but before Ho-cheon could answer, Jung-hee chased the reporter away. However, the reporter wrote an article saying that there was a witness who saw the murderer. He also put Ho-cheon's picture in the newspaper, so the murderer discovered Ho-cheon. That night, Ho-cheon returned home. He realized that the murderer was there. The murderer controlled his wife and child, but before Ho-cheon could react, the murderer immediately attacked both of them. The murderer said that it was Ho-cheon's fault because Ho-cheon had seen him. Ho-cheon woke up in a panic and realized it was just a dream, but it was also a bad omen. At this time, Ho-cheon remembered the past. In fact, he had not seen the killer's face clearly. If the killer really appeared, Ho-cheon could only feel it spiritually. The next morning, Ho-cheon went to the fire department. He had to take a leave of absence because his body had not fully recovered. At the same time, his daughter's birthday was coming up, so he wanted to stay home and prepare for his wife. Recently, Jung-hee was having trouble with a serial murder case. 3 cases happened consecutively in the past 2 years, but the police could not find any clues. They only knew that this killer was a psychopath. He often targeted young girls. He forced the girls to participate in a crazy game, asking them to chew up a glass plate in an extremely romantic setting. The girl's last tear fell. No one knew whether it was happiness or sadness. At this time, Ho-cheon came to pick up his daughter, Soo-ah. Then he took her home. On the way, the two of them accidentally met Shi-woo. He was Soo-ah's art teacher. Shi-woo was also Ho-cheon's neighbor, so he was not on guard against Shi-woo. But Soo-ah was upset and wanted to take her father away. That afternoon, Ho-cheon took Soo-ah to Shi-woo's room to study. He went back to his room to clean up, but Soo-ah sneaked out and went to the chemical room in the basement parking lot. It turned out that Soo-ah kept a cat there. Suddenly, a young man in black appeared, startling Soo-ah. But it turned out that he was an acquaintance of hers. He was a security guard of the building named Dong-ju. He often helped Soo-ah when she was bullied at school. At the same time, he also took care of the cat with her. Soo-ah planned to convince her parents to let her keep a cat in the house on her upcoming birthday. Dong-ju was happy for her when he heard that. Suddenly, he received a phone call, so he had to leave first. Only Soo-ah was left in the room. At this time, Ho-cheon wanted to bring the scrap down to the basement, but unfortunately, he dropped the can. At that moment, Shi-woo came and helped him pick it up. Shi-woo also wanted to help Ho-cheon carry it to the elevator. While waiting for the elevator, the two talked. Ho-cheon praised that people who draw well often have beautiful hands like Shi-woo. When Shi-woo heard that, he mentioned Soo-ah and praised her hands as a masterpiece. Ho-cheon did not pay attention to Shi-woo's excitement, but looked at the paintings. Ho-cheon asked to see those paintings, but Shi-woo refused because he had not finished painting yet. He promised to show Ho-cheon next time. When the elevator arrived, Shi-woo wanted to help Ho-cheon bring the scrap down to the basement, but Ho-cheon stopped her and reminded her that Soo-ah was waiting for Shi-woo to teach her drawing in the room. Shi-woo heard that and had to go back first. Inside the room, Soo-ah was attentively drawing a portrait based on an existing photo. Shi-woo praised Soo-ah for her improvement. He promised to bring a real model next time. time. When Suah drew the lips, she still didn't know how to choose the right color. Unexpectedly, Shiwoo directly took his blood and drew it on the picture. He thought that the more realistic something was, the more attractive it was. Suah felt scared when she saw that. Although Shiah had known he was a pervert for a long time, she didn't expect him to go to this extent. After Ho-chan brought the scrap metal down to the basement, he returned to the elevator and found his wife talking to a woman. She knew Jung-hee was a police officer, so she wanted Jung-hee to investigate Dong-ju. Because the woman thought he was a murderer, it turned out that Dong-ju had a criminal record, but at the moment, the woman had no evidence, so Jung-hee couldn't conduct the investigation on her own. The woman left angrily, leaving a message that he would not regret until he killed someone. After that, Ho-chon and his wife entered the elevator together. At this time, Ho-chon wondered about the person the woman had mentioned. Although Dong-ju had a criminal record, it was only for fraud and he had never hurt anyone. When Dong-ju arrived at the building to work, Jung-hee had also investigated very thoroughly. Because her family was living here, Ho-chon felt more secure when he heard that. The next day, Suah went out with a male classmate. The boy wanted to give her a phone because her birthday was coming up. However, she did not accept the gift. Seeing that, the boy wondered why she preferred to use 2G phones instead of modern 5G phones. Suah explained that it was a way to avoid being tracked and managed. 2G phones would not be located, but the boy had another question. What if one day the girl was kidnapped? When Suah wasn't paying attention, the boy secretly put his phone in her bag. When he saw that he wasn't discovered, he was extremely happy. At this time, someone came to report to the building manager that a woman in the room next door often played loud music, but she didn't close her room door. This caused trouble for other people's lives. A while later, the building manager went up to the woman's room. At this time, the music in the room was still loud, but the manager discovered that the woman was dead. The police quickly arrived at the scene. The victim had been dead for several days. On the wall was a picture drawn in blood. It depicted the victim's death pose. Captain Zhang determined that the Zigger killer had struck again after a long period of silence. A reporter suddenly rushed in and asked what was going on here. Captain Zhang was angry and ordered others to take reporter Choi out. Reporter Choi then reported to the newsroom that he was about to have a breaking news story. Zigger killer was back. At this time, Ho-chan was on his way back to the building when he saw many police cars coming there. Ho-chan was confused and didn't understand what was going on when he accidentally discovered Suah was with Dong-ju. At this time, Ho-chan remembered what the woman said the day before, that Dong-ju could be a murderer. Ho-chan immediately chased after his daughter and decided to stop her from being close to Dong-ju. Ho-chan dragged his daughter away. Dong-ju also left without understanding what was going on. Ho-chan asked why Suah was talking to a stranger. The girl said that Dong-ju was not a stranger. After she finished speaking, she angrily left. Ho-chan had to chase after Suah and apologize. Then he and the girl returned home. There were many police officers in front of the building. When Ho-chan and Suah entered the elevator, they heard gossip from the neighbors that the murderer he met 2 years ago had just committed a crime in the building. When the elevator stopped at the 15th floor where the crime took place, the two neighbors came out to see the situation. Ho-chan also wanted to follow them, so he told Suah to go upstairs and close the door carefully. Then he went to the crime scene alone. The image of the crime 2 years ago flooded his mind. That made him unable to stand. Luckily, Shiwoo caught Ho-chan in time. After a while, the victim was carried out. After a long while, Ho-chan regained his composure. He and Shiwoo waited for the elevator to go up to their room. At this time, Shiwoo wondered how Ho-chan felt when he witnessed the murder twice. Ho-chan did not know how to answer. Just then the elevator arrived, so both of them stepped inside. At this time, Shiwoo also confessed to Ho-chan that this was also the second time he nor witnessed a murder. The first time, he witnessed a murder in Cheongdong. That was where Shiwoo lived about 3 years ago. That was also where Zigger killer first appeared. At present, Shiwoo is no longer afraid of him. Both of them went to the 21st floor. Ho-chan is in room 2103. Shiwoo is in the room opposite. Then the two of them returned to their rooms. On the other side, Captain Zhang is analyzing a serial murder case. Zigger killer first appeared in Cheongdong on March 2018. Up to now, 4 victims have died. They are all beautiful and rich young women. The killer used their blood to draw pictures on the wall. The poses in the pictures correspond to the victims' death poses. The killer is mentally ill. He considers murder a form of artistic creation. No clues were left at the scene. This shows that the murderer was very careful. At this point, Captain Zhang could only discover one unusual detail, which was the time of the crime. The previous 3 cases were usually several months apart. Everyone thought that the Zigger killer had disappeared, but after 2 years, he returned. As long as the police found the cause, they could track down Zigger killer. Jung-hee sat on the side listening, feeling extremely awkward because her husband might be dragged into this case. That night, when Jung-hee returned home, she asked about her daughter's situation. Then she sat down to talk with her husband. Jung-hee reminded Ho-chan that tomorrow the police would take statements from the people living in the building. Ho-chan might be questioned first because he had witnessed the murder twice. Jung-hee remained firm. She wanted her husband to say that he knew nothing, so that their family could continue to live peacefully. Ho-chan understood his wife's intentions, so he also knew what he had to do. In the near future, will join the special investigation team to catch the Zigger killer, so she may not be home for a while. Jung-hee wants her husband to take care of their daughter. That is also Ho-chan's responsibility. The two hugged each other before parting. The next day was Sua's birthday. Ho-chan had prepared some delicious food to celebrate, but Sua did not want to stay home because this year she did not have her mother. Moreover, Sua also had other plans. When she left the house, Ho-chan wanted to see her off to the subway, but after the two of them had walked a distance, Ho-chan remembered that he had forgotten to bring his daughter's birthday present. Ho-chan wanted Sua to wait while he went back to get it, but as soon as Ho-chan left, he discovered Dongju approaching Sua. But Ho-chan thought there was no problem, so he continued to return home. When Ho-chan found the gift he had prepared for his daughter, he happily brought it to her. But when he arrived, he found that his daughter was no longer waiting for him. He called his daughter to ask her, but she did not answer. While Ho-chan was worried and looking around, he suddenly found Sua's phone in his pocket. Ho-chan remembered the man he had bumped into earlier. It was the man who left his phone. Suddenly, an unknown number called Sua's phone. The person on the other end of the line informed him that they were holding Ho-chan's daughter. They asked him to go to the parking lot to find his daughter. Although Ho-chan did not understand what was happening, he still had to do as asked. When he arrived at the parking lot, he saw a person using a backpack to signal that Sua was in the car. Ho-chan hurriedly chased after her, but he could not catch up, so he had to find another way to block the car. He was hit by the car, but he still tried to stand up. When he saw his daughter in the car, he desperately jumped up and grabbed the car. The driver accelerated and hit Ho-chan, sending him flying. Then he continued to drive away. Ho-chan quickly remembered the license plate number and immediately dialed the number to call the police. However, before Ho-chan could call, he received a call from an unknown number. Ho-chan thought the caller was the murderer. Because he was afraid that Ho-chan would give a statement to the police, the murderer wanted to capture Sua to threaten him. Ho-chan insisted that he did not remember the face of his small accomplice, so he would not say anything. However, the person on the other end of the line laughed. He said that he was not the Zigger killer. On the contrary, he was also looking for the murderer. The man forced Ho-chan to remember the face of the murderer. From now on, Ho-chan had to find the Zigger killer within 24 hours. If he did not find the murderer, he would not expect to see his daughter again. Ho-chan was extremely confused after hearing this. The person on the other end of the line hung up the phone. At this time, he was standing in the building observing Ho-chan. Who is this man anyway? 2 days ago, Taemin was still a prisoner. Because he possessed superior strength, he easily murdered his cellmate with just a towel. Then he faked the crime scene to make it look like he was doing something stupid. He himself slept soundly. However, early the next morning, Taemin was bailed out by his subordinates. He was a professional killer, and he spent his whole life in prison just to do assassinations. This time, Taemin was released from prison because of the return of Zigger killer. Before that, Taemin had been pursuing this murderer for a long time because the two had a deep grudge in the past. But the Zigger killer suddenly disappeared for 2 years. Taemin still believed that he would return. Finally, Taemin waited for the day to avenge his loved ones. It was the Zigger killer who murdered her. But at that time, his methods were different from now. Only Taemin realized that the perpetrator of the cases at that time was the same person. After the procedure was completed, Taemin was temporarily released. His subordinates delivered the goods and reminded him that this time, Taemin was released from prison because his father died, so he only had 3 days of freedom. After that, he had to return to prison. Since the third case 2 years ago, Taemin had guessed that the Zigger killer would appear next near Ho-chan. Therefore, Taemin specifically told his subordinates to prepare the building card. However, Taemin could not act freely because he was secretly followed by a police officer. On the way, Taemin tried to lose the police. He suddenly accelerated, so the police had to accelerate as well. Taemin suddenly turned the car. This made the police unexpected. Just like that, the police were left behind. After that, Taemin drove to the building. He used the card he had prepared in advance to press the elevator to go up to the floor, but he accidentally went with Ho-chan and Shi-woo. When Taemin heard the conversation between the two, he guessed that Ho-chan was the firefighter who had met the Zigger killer 2 years ago. Taemin carefully observed Ho-chan's residence before before going up to the attic room that his subordinates had prepared. There, Tae-min could see the building's security cameras. This place was no different from a security room. Tae-min needed to pay attention to the 21st floor where Ho-chan was, because he was the target to be monitored if he wanted to find the Zigger killer. After that, Tae-min went to meet a subordinate. That person was the driver who took Sua away. Tae-min had sent this person some money in advance so that he could carry out his plan the next day with peace of mind. When Tae-min returned to the building, the police who were assigned to monitor him came looking for him. Tae-min thought he had successfully shaken off the police, but the police had installed a location on his phone. The police reminded Tae-min that he had only a little more than a day left, so he better not act strangely. This is also the reason why Tae-min told Ho-chan to find Zigger killer within 24 hours. After that, Tae-min went up to the attic room. However, he disguised himself and sneaked around the stairs to the 21st floor. Tae-min was almost caught by Shi-woo, so Tae-min had to hide in the bathroom. The next morning was the day Ho-chan's daughter was kidnapped. Through the security camera, Tae-min discovered that she had gone out. He immediately called the driver to prepare for action. The driver was in a hurry and accidentally bumped into Shi-woo. Because of that, he dropped Sua's phone. Shi-woo discovered that there was a photo of Sua in the phone, so he immediately realized that this person was suspicious. The driver quickly left. He quickly went to where Sua was standing and injected her with an anesthetic. Then he took her to the parking lot. When Ho-chan returned and did not see his daughter, he panicked and went to look for her. He received a call from Tae-min, luring Ho-chan to the parking lot, but he still couldn't save his daughter. Ho-chan was also forced by Tae-min to participate in a 24-hour game of tag. If Ho-chan did as requested, Tae-min would return Sua intact within 10 minutes. Ho-chan had no choice but to do as Tae-min asked. The game started at 10 o'clock in the morning. Ho-chan had to go back to his room to wait. At 11 o'clock in the morning, Tae-min would send a mission to Ho-chan. However, Ho-chan remembered an important thing. Sua had met Dongju before she was kidnapped. Therefore, Ho-chan suspected that Dongju was involved in this case. Ho-chan decided to go find Dongju. Through the manager's words, Ho-chan learned that Dongju was checking the chemical room. Ho-chan immediately ran there, but the room was locked. He tried to break the door to get inside. After entering, he found that Dongju was collecting Sua's photos. Could he be a pervert stalker? Dongju had just arrived outside. He realized that someone had broken the door of the chemical room. Dongju carefully walked inside. Ho-chan suddenly rushed out with a stick and continuously attacked Dongju, but Dongju dodged all the attacks. The two fought for a while. Dongju was finally subdued by Ho-chan. Ho-chan asked Dongju where he had taken his daughter, but Dongju did not understand this question. When Dongju learned that Sua had been kidnapped, he was also very worried. Dongju tried to explain, but Ho-chan did not believe him. Because Dongju wanted to prove his innocence, he had to lead Ho-chan to the security room. Through the surveillance camera, Ho-chan realized that the person who had kidnapped Sua was not Dongju. After Dongju left, the kidnapper appeared. Ho-chan wished he could have arrived a little earlier. Dongju wished he hadn't left Sua at that time. But there is no medicine for regret in this world. The urgent thing now is to find Sua. Dongju promised to help Ho-chan as much as possible. Ho-chan was afraid that Dongju would be in danger, but Dongju was proud of his black belt. Moreover, he considered Sua as his sister. Dongju had deeply regretted that he could not protect his own sister in the past, so now he was determined to rescue Sua. Ho-chan had no choice but to let Dongju go with him. At the same time, Ho-chan also apologized for doubting Dongju before, but Dongju did not care about that. Then, he began to analyze. According to the kidnapper, if Ho-chan did as he asked, he would bring Sua back in 10 minutes. So Dongju suspected that the kidnapper had hidden Sua in the building. Otherwise, how could he dare to promise such a thing? Dongju pointed out the suspicious locations in the building, which were places where few people went, so those places were suitable for holding hostages. Then, the two of them went to the first location together. When they heard noises inside, they immediately rushed in. Ho-chan quickly grabbed someone, but Dongju recognized them. It was his colleague. Dongju told the two of them to go home first, and then reminded Ho-chan to calm down, because there were still many other places that had not been checked. Then the two of them continued their actions. Suddenly, Ho-chan remembered that Tae-min had promised to hand over the mission at 11 o'clock, so now he had to return to his room. Dongju would replace Ho-chan to look for Sua. Ho-chan gave Dongju his phone number to contact him. After that, Dongju went to the mechanical room alone. He searched in the dark for a while and accidentally discovered Sua's hair tie dropped on the ground. Dongju immediately texted Ho-chan to report this. When Ho-chan received the text, he rushed to the mechanical room. Unexpectedly, Dongju was being controlled by Tae-min. Tae-min called Ho-chan and claimed to be the kidnapper. Tae-min looked at his watch and realized that Ho-chan did not accept accept the mission on time. This meant that Ho-chan did not care about his daughter's life. Ho-chan was extremely panicked when he heard that. He suggested that they slowly negotiate, but Taemin did not agree. If Ho-chan wanted to negotiate, he would have to pay the price for his wrongdoings first. Unexpectedly, Dongju escaped from his control and attacked Taemin with a baton, but Dongju could not defeat a professional killer, so he was stabbed by Taemin a few times. Dongju accidentally recognized Taemin, so he was stabbed by Taemin fatally. Then he was thrown out of the arena. Ho-chan quickly blew out the smoke and took Dongju away. He turned on the alarm, causing the door to the mechanical room to close. Ho-chan quickly pulled Dongju through the door. Taemin was locked inside. Then both of them tried to escape, but Dongju was too badly injured, so Ho-chan took off his shirt to cover Dongju's wound. Dongju wanted to say Taemin's name, but he couldn't. At that moment, there were footsteps outside. Ho-chan wanted to call for help, but unexpectedly, it was Taemin. Taemin told Ho-chan that this was the result he had to receive when he didn't follow the request. Dongju's sacrifice gave Ho-chan a second chance. He had to take advantage of it to save his daughter. At this time, Ho-chan realized how scary Taemin was, so he promised not to disobey Taemin's words again. Taemin returned Sua's phone to Ho-chan. Now, Ho-chan's mission is to find Zigger Killer and kill him. At this time, the special investigation team held a meeting. Captain Jang gave an analysis of Zigger Killer. Captain Jang could not determine his identity because he had never shown his face. Through the security camera at the crime scene that had just happened, the police noticed that the killer was still fully dressed and did not reveal any features. He also made provocative actions in front of the security camera. Captain Jang could only detect one detail. The shirt that Zigger Killer was wearing was from the Guzu shipping company. The police would start investigating from this clue. They had to act as quickly as possible because Zigger Killer would continue to hide after 48 hours of committing the crime. After the meeting ended, Captain Jang divided the work among everyone. Jung-hee still could not integrate into the team. At this time, Detective Oh came to talk to her. He knew that Ho-chan had met Zigger Killer, so he wanted to ask Jung-hee if Ho-chan remembered anything. Jung-hee understood what Detective Oh meant. It seemed like he thought Ho-chan was deliberately hiding information, but Jung-hee insisted that her husband could not remember Zigger Killer's face. The police had been questioning Ho-chan for a year. This had greatly affected his life. Jung-hee did not want her husband to continue to be bothered. Detective Oh was still stubborn and wanted to know where Ho-chan was. This made Jung-hee extremely angry. Luckily, at this moment, female Inspector Min-seo arrived to calm the situation. She used to be Jung-hee's superior. Min-seo had been chasing the killer for 3 years. Now she joined the special investigation team. Min-seo was determined to catch Zigger Killer. Jung-hee was rescued and followed Min-seo out. Unexpectedly, Min-seo also wanted to probe Jung-hee's information about Zigger Killer. Jung-hee considers Min-seo a friend, so she is willing to tell the details. What Jung-hee noticed was that the victim's body parts had disappeared from the crime scenes. She thought that Zigger Killer deliberately kept them to create a collection. Min-seo also noticed this. If the body parts were kept for display, they must be kept clean with specialized chemicals. This could be a reasonable direction for investigation. Jung-hee suggested another direction, that Zigger Killer always left blood paintings at the crime scene. This showed that he was someone who liked to create art, so the police could find an experienced artist. They would ask the artist to analyze the blood paintings. Min-seo would return to the team to report. Jung-hee also said goodbye to Min-seo here. Then Jung-hee returned to the office. She wanted to call and ask about her husband and daughter, but he did not answer the phone. This made Jung-hee have a bad feeling. At this time, Shiwoo was cleaning the room to prepare to move. There were strange paintings in the room. They were very similar to the victim's postures. There were also pictures of the murdered girls on the wall. Unexpectedly, Shiwoo was the terrifying Zigger Killer. His next target was Ho-chan's daughter, but she was currently kidnapped. At this time, Shiwoo only smiled mysteriously. Back to the case involving Taemin's daughter. Shiwoo approached her and started a love relationship. He murdered the girl when she was at her happiest. This made her die unwillingly. When Shiwoo finished committing the crime, footsteps were heard outside. It was Taemin who had returned. Shiwoo reported to the police that a murder had just occurred. Then he escaped from the room. When the police arrived, only Taemin was at the scene, so of course he became the murderer. Taemin had his daughter and freedom taken away by Shiwoo, so he was determined to take revenge. At this time, Ho-chan sat next to Dongju's body. He regretted dragging Dongju into this, but now, Ho-chan didn't have much time left. The most important thing was to rescue Sua. Ho-chan called a colleague in the fire department. He asked his colleague to come and take Dongju's body away. Only then did Ho-chan leave that place. On his way home, Ho-chan received a text message from his wife. Because Jung-hee called him but couldn't get through, she decided to return return home. Ho-chan was very worried when he heard the news because he was afraid that his wife would be caught in danger. Ho-chan hurriedly ran back to his room to prepare. In the elevator, Ho-chan met someone, but he didn't recognize it as Tae-min. He was worried that he would be discovered with bloodstains all over his body. Unfortunately, Ho-chan dropped his phone. Kind Tae-min helped him pick it up. Ho-chan even thanked him. Then Ho-chan bowed and exited the elevator without realizing that Tae-min was laughing. Tae-min was still holding Sua's hair tie. Later, Ho-chan returned to the room and immediately called his wife. He told her that she didn't need to go home. He pretended that everything was fine to reassure her. That made her change her mind. On the other side, Sua's kidnapper received a call from Tae-min. Tae-min had left the money in the car, so he just needed to take the money. Then he would forget everything that happened today. However, the kidnapper wondered what Tae-min would do to Sua. Tae-min didn't answer that question. The kidnapper was very worried because he was also Tae-min's accomplice, because he was afraid that Tae-min would harm innocent people. At this time, the police came to investigate the building, but after a long search, they finally found an occupied room. Shi-woo was inside playing loud music. Detective Oh went to knock on the door, and Shi-woo opened it for the two of them to enter. He had finished cleaning the room. There were no clues left in the room now. After the police entered the building, they wanted to take Shi-woo's statement on the day of the crime in the building. Shi-woo answered in a nonchalant manner. Did the Zigger killer do it so that the witness could see it? Min-seo asked what Shi-woo was mumbling. Shi-woo put on a fake face and said that he would tell everything he knew. Detective Oh started asking questions. Shi-woo admitted that he and the victim knew each other. When he moved into the building 7 months ago, his arm was in a cast. Mi-kyung saw this and came to his aid. He told her a story in the book, The Silence of the Lambs. In the story, there was a man who pretended to have an injured arm and asked a woman for help, but in reality, he was a serial killer. When the woman wasn't paying attention, he used his cast to beat her to death. Mi-kyung was a bit scared when she heard that, but she thought that this could only be a joke of Shi-woo. Shi-woo also admitted that he did so because he wanted to attract Mi-kyung's attention. Shi-woo successfully approached Mi-kyung. The second time Shi-woo met her was in the gym. He wanted to invite her to eat to thank her for her help last time. She agreed without hesitation, but she did not know that this would be her last meal. Shi-woo invited Mi-kyung to eat glass. She cried and begged for her life, but she still could not escape her tragic fate. Back to reality, Shi-woo told the police that he and Mi-kyung had only met 3 times. His face showed regret and excitement. Shi-woo said that they seemed to like each other, but unfortunately Mi-kyung was no longer in this world. Shi-woo's testimony was perfect, but it still made Min-seo feel suspicious. She pretended to ask where the restroom was. Then she went to explore the room. There were many deodorizers in there. Min-seo remembered Jung-hee's argument about preserving the victim's body. Shi-woo's deliberate attempt to hide the painting made Min-seo even more certain that he had a problem. After Min-seo and Detective Oh left the room, she told him to investigate Shi-woo further. At this time, Ho-chan was sitting waiting for Tae-min's next mission. Suddenly, the manager rang the doorbell. He said that someone had sent something to Ho-chan. The manager also said that this was very important. Ho-chan took it and quickly closed the door. Then, he opened the package to check. Inside was a black suit with someone's business card. He tried to dial the phone number, but no one answered. He angrily crushed the business card and turned to look at the camera. He didn't know what to do next. Tae-min still hadn't assigned the task and was busy with other things. Tae-min changed into new clothes and went to a closed room in the building. He didn't expect Sua to be there. She was scared and called for help, but Tae-min signaled to keep quiet. Sua immediately understood and followed. Otherwise, she would be in danger. After that, Tae-min returned to the room to observe Ho-chan. When he realized that the police were coming, Tae-min immediately reminded Ho-chan that he had the right to change his decision now. But if he called the police, he wouldn't be able to see his daughter again. Ho-chan was very hesitant in this awkward situation. He was about to open the door, but he changed his mind at the last minute. This made Tae-min very satisfied. When the police didn't open the door, they had to leave. After that, Tae-min wanted Ho-chan to change into the clothes he had just received. Then, he had to start looking for Zigger killer, but Ho-chan objected. Tae-min kept using Sua to threaten Ho-chan. He said he would not return the girl, but Tae-min did not say clearly whether he would return a living person or a soulless body. Ho-chan suspected Tae-min of harming Sua. He needed to confirm whether his daughter was alive or dead. Tae-min laughed because someone dared to order him. Ho-chan took out the notebook in which he had sketched the Zigger killer. If Ho-chan burned it, all clues about the killer would disappear. Tae-min had no other choice, so he let Ho-chan hear Sua's voice. However, after Ho-chan heard it, he still burned the notebook. From now on, Ho-chan was the only one who could identify the Zigger killer. If anything happened to his daughter, he would immediately cancel the cooperation. Ho-chan asked Tae-min to send proof that Sua was still alive every hour. Even though Tae-min was very angry, he still had to agree to that request. Ho-cheon also had to set out to find the Zigger killer immediately. After Ho-cheon changed his clothes, he received his first mission from Tae-min. He sketched out the killer's portrait in his memory. Then he left the room alone. Tae-min relied on the security camera footage and recounted Zigger killer's movements. When the Zigger killer came to the building and killed people, his actions seemed very smooth. So Tae-min asked Ho-cheon if he could guess anything. When Ho-cheon heard that question, he realized something important. Maybe the killer lived in the building. At this time, Jung-hee brought the Zigger killer case file to Captain Jang. When he learned that she had also been involved in this case, he wondered if she had found anything. She recounted what she had said to Min-seo. Captain Jang also told Jung-hee that his discovery was a gap in the time of the crime. When Jung-hee had a new discovery, she quickly called to meet Min-seo. After Min-seo returned, Jung-hee began to analyze the gap in time between the crime. That was when Zigger killer looked for a new target. He would spend about 1 to 2 months following the victim. Then, he would approach and get to know her. Zigger killer needed another 2 to 3 months to gain the victim's trust. Finally, he would brutally murder the victim. Zigger killer would feel happy when he completed his game. Jung-hee's calculations showed that the killer needed 6 to 7 months to murder a victim. The first 3 cases completely matched this theory. However, from the 3rd case to the 4th case, the gap between the crime was up to 2 years. According to Jung-hee's speculation, there might still be other victims during that time. Or during that time, Zigger killer had something more important than murder. After the meeting ended, Jung-hee met Min-seo privately to give a clue. Based on the analysis in the meeting just now, Jung-hee suspected that Zigger killer was the one who moved to the building about 6 to 7 months ago. When Min-seo heard that, she immediately remembered Shi-woo. In the morning when she took her statement, he gave her a very strange feeling. Min-seo also investigated Shi-woo. However, she still returned to the scene again. Jung-hee accidentally discovered that Min-seo had forgotten something. Jung-hee wanted to chase after Min-seo to give it to her, but Jung-hee unfortunately bumped into reporter Choi. She was still angry about the previous incident. He posted false news about Ho-cheon seeing Zigger killer's face. This caused a lot of trouble for her family. Reporter Choi claimed that he was helping the police. He gave Jung-hee a hint by asking her why she still hadn't realized the reason the killer appeared in her building. When Jung-hee heard that, she understood something. Could it be that the Zigger killer's real target was her family? At this time, Shi-woo carried his luggage and put it in the trunk. He was preparing to move to another place when he accidentally discovered that the masked man from last time was holding Sua's photo. Shi-woo called her, but the person who answered the phone was Ho-cheon. Shi-woo seemed to be wondering where Sua was, but Ho-cheon wanted to hide the fact that his daughter was kidnapped, so he said that she had gone to her grandmother's house for a few days. Shi-woo seemed to regret that he could not say goodbye to his student. When Ho-cheon learned that Shi-woo was about to move, he immediately asked why, but Shi-woo only replied that he had finished his work here. Moreover, he felt that this building was a bit boring. Shi-woo came here because he thought there would be something interesting, but the result was not as he expected. Because Ho-cheon did not recognize Shi-woo, he did not understand the meaning of these words. So Ho-cheon said goodbye to Shi-woo on behalf of his daughter. But suddenly, Shi-woo changed his mind. He wanted to do something interesting in this building. At the same time, Shi-woo wanted to wait for Sua to come back because he wanted her to witness the painting he had drawn. After that, Shi-woo said goodbye to Ho-cheon and left. Suddenly, Ho-cheon remembered his speculation about the murderer. That person considered killing people as fun. The reason the murderer drew the paintings at the scene was because he wanted others to witness his masterpiece. Ho-cheon began to suspect Shi-woo, so Ho-cheon secretly followed Shi-woo. At this time, Min-seo returned to Shi-woo's room, but he was no longer there. She went down to the lobby to ask the manager about Shi-woo's personality. The manager praised Shi-woo. The manager thought that he was both polite and kind. Shi-woo was also known as the angel artist because he taught painting for free to children who had a passion. Min-seo thought carefully, but she still felt that this was not the real Shi-woo. At this time, a colleague from the fire department went to the place Ho-cheon had indicated. He discovered Dongju's body. He was shocked and immediately reported to the police. When the police received the notice, they were extremely confused. They wondered why the Zigger killer would attack a man. Captain Jang speculated that this might just be an accidental death in Zigger killer's plan. The special investigation team still had to take over this case, so Captain Jang immediately sent his subordinates to the scene. Things were getting more and more complicated. The police were on command at the scene. The subordinate that Tae-min had sent to deal with the body arrived later than the police. At this time, Tae-min began to feel worried. If the police found out the truth, he would no longer have a chance to take revenge on the Zigger killer. At the scene, the police saw the coat that Cheon had covered Dongju. There was a concert ticket in the pocket. It was a birthday present that Ho Cheon prepared for his daughter. The police sent someone to confirm the DNA on the jacket. They wanted to know who bought the ticket. Not long after, the police got the results. The results were immediately brought to the special investigation team to report. Jung-hee was very surprised when she read the results, because now her husband had become a suspect. Reporter Choi was gossiping and spreading false news that Ho Cheon was the murderer. This made him have to find a way to hide. At this time, Ho Cheon was extremely confused. He did not know what to do next, because his image was all over the press. At this time, Ho Cheon suddenly received a phone call from his wife, but he did not dare to answer. Jung-hee was very worried when she could not call him. At that moment, Captain Jang returned and was very angry. He asked why everyone had leaked the information, but when Captain Jang saw reporter Choi's face, he could only sigh. He felt helpless in this situation. Captain Jang ordered the team members that they must quickly catch the suspect. Otherwise, the people would doubt the police's ability. Everyone immediately split up to act. Captain Jang wanted to meet Jung-hee alone. According to the rules, when a police officer has a family member involved in a case, that person must withdraw from the investigation. But Ho Cheon was only a suspect. Moreover, Jung-hee trusted her husband very much, so she wanted to prove his innocence. But Captain Jan quickly interrupted and thought that Jung-hee would be influenced by emotions. However, she still insisted on participating in this case. At this time, Captain Jang had no choice but to give up his intention. However, he would always follow her closely. After Jung-hee left Captain Jan's room, she went to take a statement from the firefighter who reported the case. Pan Sok was called to the crime scene by Ho Cheon. He didn't tell the police anything, but he told Jung-hee in detail. Oan Seok thought that Ho Cheon was not the murderer. Oan Seok thought that Ho Cheon was not the murderer. On the contrary, he wanted to save the victim, because there were signs of using something to cover the wound to prevent the blood from flowing out. No murderer would stab the victim multiple times and then cover each spot. This confirmed that there was someone else at the scene besides Ho Cheon. The place where the victim's body was found was not the first scene of the case, because there was very little blood. When Jung-hee learned this information, she promised Pan Sok that she would find a way to clear her husband's name. Then Jung-hee left the interrogation room. At this time, Ho Cheon was still on the run, but he suddenly received a call from Tae-min. Tae-min wanted Ho Cheon to continue searching for the Zigger killer and not to sit still. Ho Cheon was afraid that he would be caught before he met the murderer. Tae-min then reminded Ho Cheon to look at the gift he sent. Ho Cheon discovered a black box that someone left behind. Inside was a fingernail. Ho Cheon was very worried when he saw this. This was what Tae-min wanted to send. It proved that Ho Cheon's daughter was still alive. If Ho Cheon didn't act, Tae-min would give him a bigger gift. Ho Cheon begged not to hurt Sua. Ho Cheon would listen to Tae-min's arrangement. Tae-min asked Ho Cheon to get up and leave. Ho Cheon was forced to move. He took a hat to disguise himself. The first person Ho Cheon remembered was Shi Woo, so Ho Cheon had to go find him first. At this time, Min So returned to the crime scene. There, she discovered something strange on the blood painting. Min So took out the photo that the police took when they first arrived at the scene. After comparing it, she realized that the painting on the wall had a few new strokes. Min So immediately called the police guarding the scene to question her. She wanted to know if anyone had broken in. Unexpectedly, Shi Woo had been to the scene and used his own blood to add color to the painting. Shi Woo wanted his masterpiece to be perfect. However, that left an important clue for the police. Min So took a blood sample from the wall and brought it back for DNA testing. Unexpectedly, Min So received a call from Jung-hee. Jung-hee wanted to ask Min So for help with something. After that, Min So went to Ho Cheon's room. The police were searching the room. They later found a bloody shirt there. Besides, there were no clues related to the case. It seemed that Ho Cheon deliberately left the shirt because he wanted to confirm that he was the culprit. There must be something hidden in this story. Detective Oh suspected that Jung-hee knew what her husband wanted to do, but she did not report it. However, Min So warned Detective Oh not to make any wild guesses. The police then found another clue, a hidden camera in the room. Someone was watching Ho Cheon's family. This was not normal. The spy camera was definitely involved in the case. Ho Cheon might be being manipulated by him. At this time, Jung-hee went to the forensic room to examine Dongju's body. She realized that the stab wounds were from a professional killer. On Jung-hee's way back, she reported this to Captain Jang. He had no idea about this, but he did not want to lose face, so he said that the police were investigating the matter. Captain Jang asked Jung-hee not to act on her own. He told her to return immediately. Jung-hee angrily hung up the phone when she heard this, but she suddenly received another call. Min So reported the findings at Jung-hee's house. When she learned that her family was being watched, she was extremely worried. She did not know what her husband had gotten himself into. Her daughter was also not at home. So where is Sua? Jung-hee decides to go home. At this time, Ho-chun is still following Shi-woo. Shi-woo goes to a coffee shop and approaches a beautiful girl. He thinks she is his next target, but unexpectedly, Shi-woo chases the girl to another table. He must sit at this table. It turns out, Shi-woo is remembering the moment when Mi-kyung was happy. At that time, she was not on guard against him. He goes through every place that has memories with the victim. He is enjoying the feeling of victory after each successful kill. Ho-chun is still following Shi-woo. Ho-chun sees Shi-woo smiling to himself. He doesn't know if this guy has any mental problems or not. Suddenly, Shi-woo turns around and he discovers Ho-chun. Ho-chun quickly avoids Shi-woo's eyes, but when Ho-chun looks back, Shi-woo has disappeared. Ho-chun quickly goes out to look for him. Taemin asks Ho-chun if Shi-woo is the Zigger killer, but Ho-chun was not sure. Ho-chun had to find Shi-woo first, but Shi-woo suddenly appeared. Ho-chun saw that and immediately hung up. Shi-woo still acted cheerful, even though he knew Ho-chun was following him. Shi-woo realized that Ho-chun was suspicious of him, so he allowed Ho-chun to ask questions. He would answer everything honestly. Ho-chun asked if they had met 2 years ago. Shi-woo shook his head at Ho-chun's question. The exact time was 2 years, 2 months, and 12 days. Ho-chun was about to ask more questions, but Shi-woo reminded him to run away because the police were surrounding the place. Ho-chun immediately ran away, and the police also quickly chased after him. However, they lost track of Ho-chun. At this time, Taemin received a text message. After that, he immediately left the room. It turned out that the kidnapper was watching Sua, but he suddenly received news that his wife was premature birth, so he quickly left his post. Sua had untied herself beforehand. She was just waiting for this opportunity to escape from the room. Sua was scared and groped for the exit in the dark tunnel, but she still bravely moved forward. But because of exhaustion, she fainted in the tunnel. A while later, the kidnapper returned, but he could not find Sua. He was scared and quickly fled, but he could not escape Taemin's pursuit. He knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Taemin let him hear his wife's voice. His wife had given birth successfully, and this was all thanks to Taemin's support for hospital fees. He should have completed his mission well. He wanted a chance to correct his mistakes, but Taemin just kept silent and said nothing. At this time, Shi-woo returned to the building. Through the manager's words, he knew that Min-so was looking for him. At this time, Shi-woo realized that Min-so had investigated the truth. Just then, Min-so stepped out. Shi-woo quickly left first. Min-so spotted him and immediately chased after him. She did not directly arrest him, but only silently observed. At this time, Ho-chun had also escaped the police's pursuit, so he turned back to follow Shi-woo. Because Ho-chun realized that Min-so was also following Shi-woo, he only dared to watch from afar. Shi-woo also knew that someone was following him, so he lured Min-so onto the train. Then he suddenly disappeared. Luckily, she still realized it in time, so she got off before the train departed. When Min-so saw Shi-woo marking on the map, she felt extremely confused. Only when he left did she go to check. Min-so did not expect that the marked locations corresponded to the crime scenes of 4 cases. In addition, there was another location marked with a question mark. At this time, Min-so remembered what Jung-hee had said, that maybe during the 2 years of hiding, the perpetrator would still attack other victims. Min-so continued to follow Shi-woo, but she suddenly received a call from Jung-hee. Jung-hee had made a new discovery about the case, but Min-so was currently chasing the suspect, so she didn't have time to talk to Jung-hee. So Min-so immediately hung up. When Jung-hee heard that Min-so had found the suspect, she quickly reported it to the special investigation team. Captain Jong asked about Min-so's location, but she hung up without saying anything. Captain Jong had someone locate Min-so. The rest of the team gathered. They prepared to leave to capture the suspect. The police quickly found Min-so's location. Everyone quickly set off. Jung-hee was ordered to stay on duty. If Min-so contacted her again, Jung-hee had to immediately report to Captain Jang. At this time, Min-so had followed Shi-woo to the container yard. She didn't know that he was deliberately leading her. Min-so was lured into the container. There was a suit from the Guzu shipping company. This was the suit the murderer wore when he committed the crime in the building. At this moment, Min-so no longer had any doubts. She was sure that Shi-woo was the Zigger killer. Suddenly, he appeared in front of her. At this time, Ho-chun also followed them to the container yard, but he lost track of Min-so. At this moment, he suddenly heard gunshots. The sound made him extremely worried. Ho-chun hurriedly went to find Min-so. The police also quickly arrived at the scene. They split up to search for Min-so everywhere. At the container, Min-so was lying injured on the ground. Shi-woo approached with a knife and said that today was supposed to be his happy day. But why did Min-so ruin it? Shi-woo angrily stabbed Min-so in the stomach, but she still believed that if anything happened to her, the police would definitely catch Shi-woo. He showed no fear and said that if the police were really that good, they would have caught him a long time ago. Then Shi-woo pressed on the wound, causing Min-so's blood to flow out. Min-so was in so much pain, but she refused to beg. Min-seo mocked Shi-woo, saying that he was just a devil who thought he was an artist. That statement touched Shiwoo's heart. He held his head in pain and shouted, "Everyone shut up." Then Shiwoo declared that he would show Minso what a real devil is. Shiwoo's scream alerted Ho-cheon. He picked up a stick and went into the container. Ho-cheon saw that Shiwoo had killed Minso. He also used her blood to paint on the wall. Ho-cheon rushed to attack Shiwoo, but he easily counterattacked and knocked Ho-cheon down. Shiwoo intended to kill Ho-cheon, but he heard the sound of a police car. Captain Jang signaled to turn off the siren because the siren would alert the killer to run away. Shiwoo smiled and left. Ho-cheon wanted to chase after Shiwoo, but he couldn't bear to leave Minso because she was in critical condition. Ho-cheon decided to give first aid to Minso, but the result was in vain. At this time, Ho-cheon felt extremely helpless, so he had to carry Minso out of the car. At this moment, the police arrived. Ho-cheon wanted to call an ambulance for Minso, but the police considered catching the suspect more important than saving people. Ho-cheon accidentally became a substitute for the murderer. When Taemin witnessed all of that, he could only smile, because Ho-cheon's situation was no different from his before. Finally, Taemin also knew who the Zigger killer was. Catching him was only a matter of time. This was Taemin's biggest problem. At this time, Ho-cheon was taken to the police station. He did not answer any questions from reporters because he could not calm down after the recent incident. When Ho-cheon met his wife again, he did not know what to say to her. In the interrogation room, the police asked him to hand over all his personal belongings and he agreed to do so. But his phone suddenly rang. At this time, Ho-cheon remembered Taemin's words. If Taemin called and Ho-cheon didn't answer, he would send a part of Sua's body. Ho-cheon wanted to get the phone back. Although the police officer didn't understand Ho-cheon's attitude, he still returned the phone to Ho-cheon. After the police officer left, Ho-cheon answered the phone. Taemin wanted to know who the Zigger killer was. Ho-cheon made a condition that as long as he could confirm that his daughter was safe, he would reveal the name of the Zigger killer. Taemin had to find a way to let Ho-cheon out so he could catch the Zigger killer himself. Currently, only Ho-cheon could recognize the killer, so Taemin had to accept this condition. He hung up and called someone else and asked if the other person had found Sua. The person on the other end of the line seemed helpless. This made Taemin extremely angry. A moment later, the police officer returned to question Ho-cheon. They have evidence against him for murder, but he refuses to say anything. He just asks to see his wife. Meanwhile, Junhai is watching the news. Reporter Choi gives out nonsense information that Ho-cheon is an accomplice of Zigger killer. Jung-hee is very angry when she hears this but can't do anything. At this time, Captain Jang comes and informs that Ho-cheon wants to see Jung-hee. She immediately goes to the interrogation room to talk to her husband. At this time, a person suddenly comes to the police station. He is the one who kidnapped Sua. He was given a chance by Taemin to redeem himself. He confesses that he is the one who killed Dong-ju. He even brought the murder weapon to hand over to the police. Inside the interrogation room, Taemin calls Ho-cheon to inform him that he has finished everything. So, Ho-cheon should have a good meal and go find Zigger killer. A moment later, the police bring food to Ho-cheon. Ho-cheon followed Taemin's instructions and ate everything. Unexpectedly, the food was poison. Ho-cheon was rushed to the emergency room. However, the driver in the car was Taemin. The car was driven to an empty lot. Taemin knocked out the police officer who was with him, then injected Ho-cheon with the antidote. Thanks to that, Ho-cheon gradually regained consciousness. Ho-cheon took the suitcase. It contained things that could help him kill the killer. Inside the suitcase was a gun full of bullets. Taemin called Ho-cheon and reminded him that this was his last chance. He had to find and kill Zigger killer if he didn't want him to kill anyone else. When Ho-cheon remembered Zigger killer's victims, he began to feel a strong determination. This time, he would end the nightmare that had lasted for the past 24 hours. After Ho-cheon left, Taemin got out of the car. His subordinates wondered why he didn't kill Zigger killer himself to get revenge. Taemin explains that he wanted to let Zigger killer feel the humiliation of being killed by a normal person. That's what Taemin wanted to see. Because the Zigger killer was a man with a very high sense of honor, he couldn't bear to lose to an ordinary person. At this time, Shiwoo was cleaning up to prepare to leave the house, but he still couldn't forget Sua and her wonderful hands. He wished he could see that girl again. Unexpectedly, God granted the wish of a villain. When Shiwoo went down to the underground parking lot, he accidentally heard a cry for help. Sua had just woken up from a coma. She was banging on the door looking for help. When Sua saw Shiwoo, she thought she was saved. Sua didn't know that the next time was an even bigger nightmare for her. Shiwoo just led Sua away. When Shiwoo discovered that Ho-cheon was pointing a gun at him, he just smiled. When Ho-cheon realized that his daughter was with Shiwoo, he was extremely confused. But Ho-cheon couldn't shoot because the knife was pressed against Sua. Shiwoo led Sua to the car and called Ho-cheon to inform him that he would take her to rest because she was very tired and scared. She was sleeping soundly. Ho-cheon angrily realized realize that this was a trick of Shi-woo. Ho-cheon warned that if anything happened to Sua, Shi-woo would have to pay with his life, but he just laughed at that threat. After Shi-woo took Sua to a safe place, he promised to call Ho-cheon back. Then Shi-woo drove away. Ho-cheon also quickly took a delivery man's car to chase after him. Only when Shi-woo had to stop because of a red light did Ho-cheon have a chance to approach him, but Shi-woo ran the red light, so Ho-cheon quickly turned back to get his car and continued chasing Shi-woo. He came across a group of people walking across the street. Shi-woo still rushed through, but because Ho-cheon wanted to avoid the group of people, he unfortunately had an accident. As a result, Ho-cheon was left behind by Shi-woo. Suddenly, Ho-cheon received a message from Shi-woo. Shi-woo asked Ho-cheon to go to the rooftop of the gaming building. There, Shi-woo would let Ho-cheon meet his daughter. Ho-cheon received the message and hurriedly left. On the other side, Taemin received a message containing a photo of Shi-woo. Only then did he realize that Zigger Killer was the person he met in the elevator. Taemin finally understood why Shi-woo was always with Ho-cheon. Shi-woo even rented a room across from Ho-cheon. Taemin went to Shi-woo's room. After Taemin used a special device to break the door, he successfully broke in. Taemin went around to check and discovered the paintings that Shi-woo left behind. Zigger Killer had sketched the body parts he had taken from the victims. Taemin found an unpainted painting. The time written on it was today. The killer's target was Ho-cheon's daughter. Taemin laughed out loud when he heard this. He called his subordinates to order them to hack the security cameras. Taemin couldn't let Shi-woo continue playing such a fun game. Taemin wanted to play with Shi-woo. At this time, Shi-woo led Sua to a damp room. She wanted to go home, but he forced her inside. He took out the tools to prepare to create another masterpiece. This made Sua feel scared. At this moment, Shi-woo received a notification that someone had broken into his house. So Shi-woo decided to go back to deal with Taemin. Then he would come back to continue finishing his work. Shi-woo told Sua not to go anywhere. However, as soon as he left, she immediately looked for a way to escape. She accidentally saw Shi-woo's works. This made her scared and run away. But he suddenly turned back and warned that if she ran away again, he would kill her. Sua was scared and immediately sat still when she heard this. Shi-woo locked the door before leaving. As soon as Shi-woo went outside, he was discovered by Ho-cheon. Shi-woo drove after Shi-woo. The two returned to the building. Shi-woo was still happily asking the police, but after Shi-woo entered the room, he discovered that Taemin was not there. This made Shi-woo feel regretful, but at this time, he accidentally discovered that his masterpieces had been touched by someone. Sua's photo was crumpled on the floor. Shi-woo was angry and wanted Taemin to pay the price. At this time, Ho-cheon was waiting for Shi-woo outside. He held a stick to practice with in order to act later. Then Ho-cheon hid and waited for the opportunity, but he suddenly received a text message. The other party asked him to go to room 1114. Ho-cheon immediately left his position and went to the designated location, but he was suddenly knocked unconscious. When Ho-cheon woke up, he realized that he was tied up. His pants were also taken off. Ho-cheon was angry and wanted to know where Sua was, but Shi-woo wanted Ho-cheon to answer the question of who gave him the gun, because firefighters are not allowed to use guns. Shi-woo realized that Ho-cheon was being controlled by someone, but Ho-cheon refused to admit it. He just wanted to find his daughter. Shi-woo angrily stabbed Ho-cheon in the leg. Ho-cheon thought that Shi-woo did these things because he was discovered. Ho-cheon wanted Shi-woo to kill him in exchange for Sua's life, but Ho-cheon smiled evilly. Shi-woo told Ho-cheon to remember that he was the Zigger Killer. Killing men only dirty his hands. Shi-woo would turn Sua into a masterpiece. However, Shi-woo wondered why Ho-cheon wanted to die in place of his daughter. Isn't it better to live for yourself? Ho-cheon taught Shi-woo about the meaning of family. Family members will do anything for each other, even risk their lives. Ho-cheon's answer brought back a painful memory for Shi-woo. When Shi-woo was very young, he was diagnosed with juvenile depression, but his sister asked the doctor to hide the disease. She didn't want people to speculate that she had an abnormal younger brother. Shi-woo didn't have a happy childhood because his parents died early. His sister always felt that he was a burden. She didn't want him to learn to draw. She thought that art wasn't just doodles. Shi-woo shouldn't mistake himself for an artist. Shi-woo's sister always thought that he was an abnormal child. He should have replaced his parents. So Shi-woo was caught up in obsessions. He just turned into a sick person. His sister's scoldings echoed in his head, making him feel pain. But then, Shi-woo gradually calmed down. Family was precious to Ho-cheon, but it meant nothing to Shi-woo. Shi-woo gave Ho-cheon a chance to save his daughter. If Ho-cheon tells Shi-woo who ordered him, Sua will be safe. Ho-cheon will make Shi-woo promise. Shi-woo also does not hesitate to make a devil's promise. In fact, Shi-woo will not kill without a specific plan. Because Ho-cheon seems hesitant, Shi-woo wonders if he also does not know about the mastermind. If Ho-cheon cannot answer, Shi-woo will go find Sua. Ho-cheon wants Shi-woo to come back because he knows how to lure the mastermind out. On the other side, Jung-hee goes to the hospital to find her husband, but there is no patient named Ho-cheon. There is also no ambulance from the police station. At that moment, patient is brought in with injuries all over his body. Jung-hee realizes that the person is the police officer who accompanied Ho-cheon to the hospital. She worries and quickly calls Ho-cheon, but he does not answer. She decides to run to find him. After that, Jung-hee returns to the police station to question the kidnapper. Because she suspected he knew something, he whispered in Jung-hee's ear, and then he was dragged away by the police. Suddenly, Captain Jang ordered Jung-hee to be arrested and locked up. She didn't understand what was going on and tried to resist, but she was still controlled by her colleagues and taken inside. At this time, Ho-cheon followed the deal with Shi-woo. Ho-cheon would lure the person behind him to Shi-woo. Ho-cheon contacted Taemin to ask why he didn't keep his promise. Taemin also let Soo-ah fall into the hands of Zigger Killer. Taemin asked Ho-cheon again, "Have you killed the Zigger Killer yet? Why do you want me to keep the promise?" Ho-cheon suddenly begged Taemin to save Soo-ah, because only Taemin could help Ho-cheon at this time. Taemin laughed because Ho-cheon asked the kidnapper to save people, but this was also the only chance Taemin could have to meet Zigger Killer. Ho-cheon knew Shi-woo's location, but Taemin didn't need Ho-cheon's hand. Taemin will deal with the murderer himself. However, Ho-cheon wants to fulfill his promise. Ho-cheon only hopes that Taemin will keep his word. Taemin must bring Soo-ah back in one piece. Ho-cheon and Taemin agreed to continue the deal. After Ho-cheon hung up, he set off to save his daughter. When Ho-cheon arrived at the location designated by Shi-woo, he left a voice message to his wife. If anything happened to Ho-cheon, Jung-hee was to take good care of their daughter alone. Meanwhile, Jung-hee was being interrogated. Captain Jang suspected that she was the one who helped Ho-cheon escape. She insisted that there was something hidden in this story. Ho-cheon was definitely not the murderer. The kidnapper who had just confessed must have known something. Captain Jang asked Jung-hee not to make a fuss. Just then, someone ran in to inform him that Ho-cheon's phone had just been activated. The police had located him. Captain Jang immediately set off. Jung-hee wanted to follow, but she was stopped. On the other hand, Taemin left the house to go to the meeting place, but was stopped by the police. It turned out that in his previous actions, Taemin had bribed the police to turn a blind eye. This time, when the police saw that Taemin was in a hurry, he raised the price from 2 million to 20 million won. Taemin wanted to go into the room with him to negotiate, but Taemin chose to resolve it with violence. At this time, Ho-cheon came to see Shi-woo. He pulled out a gun and pointed it at the murderer and asked where Soo-ah was. It turned out that this was Ho-cheon's decision, but Shi-woo was not worried at all. Shi-woo threatened Ho-cheon that if I die here today, you will never see your daughter again. Ho-cheon wanted to ask why Shi-woo targeted his family. Shi-woo just felt that this was an interesting game. Ho-cheon should not have said Zigger Killer, "I will catch you." Ho-cheon was extremely confused when he heard that. He didn't know when he said that. It turned out that the sentence had appeared in the newspaper 2 years ago. Reporter Choi used this sentence as the title of his interview with Ho-cheon. Just because of a false article, an entire family was in danger. So, Reporter Choi was the real sinner. While Ho-cheon was distracted, Shi-woo took his gun. After the two struggled for a while, Shi-woo pulled out a knife and stabbed Ho-cheon, seriously injuring him. At this time, Taemin was on his way to the meeting place. When he discovered this, he was extremely worried. Shi-woo found a camera on Ho-cheon, so Shi-woo challenged Taemin. After that, Shi-woo destroyed the camera and held a knife to wait for Taemin. When Taemin arrived, he saw that Ho-cheon was injured, but Taemin didn't care. He slowly walked towards Shi-woo. Shi-woo looked at the man in front of him and wondered, did the two of them know each other? Taemin considers Shi-woo the biggest stain in his life. Because Taemin was originally a professional killer, he let someone else kill his daughter in his own house. Moreover, Taemin had to take the blame for the murderer, so now he just wants revenge. Shi-woo still laughs and provokes Taemin, asking if he will successfully take revenge or will he become the one to take the blame for killing Ho-cheon instead of Shi-woo. Taemin is extremely angry when he hears that. Taemin starts using violence to teach Shi-woo a lesson. Taemin doesn't need to take his hands out of his pockets, but he still beats Shi-woo until he can't stand up. But Shi-woo still laughs like a madman. Taemin grabs Shi-woo's hair and pulls him up. At this time, Shi-woo says that this time, Taemin is still the loser. Taemin doesn't understand the hidden meaning in those words, and he pulls out a knife to kill Shi-woo. But Taemin is suddenly hit in the back of the neck by Ho-cheon. It turns out that everything up until now was just a play that Shi-woo had created. When Taemin saw that Shi-woo could control Ho-cheon, he was extremely surprised. At this time, Soo-ah was looking for a way to escape the room. She broke the window and climbed out. Even though she was at such a height, she was not afraid, because she had made good use of the lesson her father had taught her. Ho-cheon had said that if Soo-ah focused, there was nothing she could not do. She mustered up all her courage and jumped down. Then she went around to find help. She She discovered a public phone booth, so she quickly called the police for help. After that, she asked the police to call her mother. However, the person on the other end of the line did not realize that she was panicking and asked her to recount the incident in detail. Meanwhile, Sua was kidnapped again. At this time, Shiwoo picked up the knife and put it in Ho-chun's hand. Shiwoo asked Ho-chun to deal with Taemin. Ho-chun was extremely hesitant in this situation. Taemin reminded Ho-chun whether this choice was correct or not. Ho-chun could not answer that question. Just then, the police arrived. Ho-chun had to lead Shiwoo to run ahead. When the police arrived at the scene, only Taemin was there. He hid what had just happened from the police. However, they discovered blood on the back of his neck. At that moment, the police announced that they had found Ho-chun's movements, so the police had to ignore Taemin and immediately chased after the wanted person. Taemin was extremely angry after what just happened, so he also wanted to find Ho-chun and Shiwoo to take revenge. At this time, Ho-chun helped Shiwoo escape from the police. He wondered when he would see his daughter. Shiwoo said that he just had to get out of here and Ho-chun's daughter would return safely. Ho-chun chose to trust Shiwoo instead of Taemin, so now he had no choice but to. Ho-chun showed Shiwoo the fire escape. Ho-chun would lure the police. Shiwoo quickly left. Ho-chun found another way out. He banged on the door to attract the police's attention and sneaked into a room. He wanted to climb through the fire escape. He used his firefighter skills to swing out of the building. The police quickly discovered Ho-chun. They tried to pull him up. However, he quickly unbuckled his seatbelt. Luckily, he was still able to land safely. When Ho-chun saw Shiwoo coming out of the building, he decided to run another way to distract the police. Shiwoo successfully took the car and escaped. Meanwhile, the police lost track of both of them. A while later, Ho-chun arrived at the location Shiwoo had indicated. However, there was only a mannequin there, not Sua. Ho-chun was fooled by Shiwoo again. At this time, Shiwoo returned to the room, but Ho-chun's daughter had escaped. Shiwoo angrily threw the saw back. He was disappointed that he couldn't complete his masterpiece. Suddenly, he received a call from Ho-chun. Ho-chun angrily shouted and asked where Sua was. Now, even Shiwoo didn't know where she was. He was regretting letting her run away, so he didn't want to talk to Ho-chun anymore. Ho-chun tried to call Shiwoo but couldn't. Surprisingly, Ho-chun received a text message containing Sua's photo. Then Taemin called Ho-chun. It turned out that the person who found Sua was Taemin's subordinate. Taemin told Ho-chun that his choice was wrong, so he wouldn't be able to see his daughter again. Ho-chun still wanted another chance, but Taemin hated traitors. Ho-chun provoked Taemin and said that his family wasn't Taemin's target. Taemin's real enemy was Zigger Killer. Doesn't Taemin want to catch his enemy? Taemin remembered his great hatred, so Taemin agreed to give Ho-chun one last chance. But this time, there would be a time limit. Ho-chun only had 30 minutes to bring the murderer. After saying that, Taemin immediately hung up. Taemin did not give Ho-chun a chance to negotiate. Ho-chun acted hastily, but he did not go to find Shiwoo, but went to the attic room. It turned out that before Dongju died, he had mentioned the two words attic to Ho-chun. At this time, Ho-chun used a lighter to activate the fire alarm, so the manager had to activate the emergency exit. Taking that opportunity, Ho-chun broke inside. He discovered the body of the police officer there. After the police officer demanded 20 million won, he was dealt with by Taemin. Unexpectedly, Ho-chun received a phone call from Taemin. Taemin asked Ho-chun why he said he was going to find the murderer, but why did he come to my room? Ho-chun confirmed that Taemin was also a murderer. Based on the scene in the room, Ho-chun threatened to call the police to search Taemin's place, so Taemin had to go back. However, Taemin insisted that Ho-chun did not trust the police. Otherwise, he would have called the police as soon as he knew his daughter was kidnapped. Ho-chun wanted to see his daughter. At this point, Taemin no longer hid from Ho-chun. Taemin showed Ho-chun the photo he found in Shiwoo's room. From the beginning, Sua had become Shiwoo's next target. If she had not been in Taemin's hands, she would probably be in Zigger Killer's collection. Even if Ho-chun returned to Ho-chun, as long as Shiwoo was free outside, she would not be safe. Because once Shiwoo made his plan, his prey would definitely die. If Ho-chun wanted his daughter back and continued to live in peace, he had to help Taemin kill Shiwoo. Taemin wanted to use Sua as bait to lure Shiwoo out. Then Ho-chun would end it all himself. However, he wanted to use his daughter as bait to lure Shiwoo. Ho-chun wrote an anonymous article to direct public opinion. The article said that Ho-chun was the real Zigger Killer, and the person accompanying him was just an accomplice. Reporter Choi took that opportunity to report. He analyzed the reason why Zigger Killer only targeted women. Because the killer was a weak and cowardly person, he did not dare to act with strong men. Those words insulted Shiwoo's self-esteem. He always thought that he was better than others. He considered speaking ill of others a pleasure, but now Shiwoo has become a weak and cowardly person. Moreover, his reputation was also robbed by Ho-chun. Shiwoo definitely would not forgive Ho-chun. Everything was not beyond Ho-chun's prediction. After Shiwoo saw the news, he was extremely angry. Shiwoo wanted to to find Ho-chan to settle the grudge, but first, he had to deal with the reporter who made up the story. Shi-woo pretended to be a witness and said he found the Guzu delivery suit. Then, Shi-woo made an appointment with reporter Choi to meet him to deliver the suit. This time, Shi-woo would kill that man, to see if reporter Choi still dared to say he was weak. When Shi-woo learned reporter Choi's address, he immediately set off. When he arrived, Shi-woo picked up the suit and placed it outside the door. As soon as reporter Choi appeared, Shi-woo immediately rushed over and dragged him into the room. Then, Shi-woo tied reporter Choi up. Shi-woo forced reporter Choi to livestream and admit that Zigger Killer's method of killing was a masterpiece. But everyone didn't understand what reporter Choi was saying. They only saw him sweating and panicking. He announced that this was his last time reporting. He suddenly cried and begged for his life. But Shi-woo was still unmoved. Shi-woo killed reporter Choi with a fatal slash. It was a tragic end for someone who only knew how to make up stories. After Shi-woo finished his work, he hurriedly left the house. The next person Shi-woo wanted to find was Ho-chan. Shi-woo called Ho-chan to make an appointment to meet him, but Shi-woo heard Taemin's voice. Shi-woo realized that the two were working together, so he wondered and asked Ho-chan if Sua was kidnapped by Taemin again. Ho-chan didn't know what to say. Shi-woo immediately hung up. Ho-chan called back but couldn't get through. At this moment, Taemin received a notice that someone had come to find him. That person was driving a car with license plate 3742. Taemin asked the security guard to let that person in. Ho-chan realized that Sua might be in the car. He carefully observed through the security camera. After the subordinate passed through the security checkpoint, he drove down to the basement. Ho-chan wanted to go down there to check. He fooled Taemin into thinking he would go outside and wait for Shi-woo to show up. Because Taemin was in a hurry, he didn't have much time to think. Taemin ordered Ho-chan that if he couldn't wait for Shi-woo, he had to come back in 30 minutes. Taemin also didn't forget to remind Ho-chan that Sua was in his hands now. Ho-chan pretended to understand and then left. He sneaked down to the underground parking lot to look for the car with license plate 3742. When Ho-chan discovered the car was moving, he immediately informed the security guard that there was something unusual about the car that was about to leave. The security guard immediately stopped the car to check, but he had no intention of cooperating. This made the security guard's suspicions increase even more. They insisted on opening the trunk. Unexpectedly, there was a man's body inside. Taemin handed the policeman's body over to his subordinates to handle. Unfortunately, he was discovered by the building's security guard. The police quickly arrived to investigate. Ho-chan stood aside and breathed a sigh of relief because the body wasn't his daughter's. Meanwhile, Jung-hee was in the cell. She wanted to go out, but no police dared to let her go. Only when Captain Jang returned did he open the door for Jung-hee. Because the special investigation team had just received news that Jung-hee's daughter had called, Captain Jang played the recording of the call for Jung-hee. She wasn't sure if it was Sua's voice or not. Jung-hee remembered that her daughter had an art class today, so she immediately called Shi-woo, but he lied and said that Sua was here. Jung-hee wanted to pick up her daughter. Shi-woo continued to lie that he had a special class today, so he wouldn't be teaching in the room. Then, Shi-woo told Jung-hee the address to pick up her daughter. If Shi-woo couldn't catch Ho-chan's daughter, he would take Ho-chan's wife as a hostage. Thinking of this, Shi-woo smiled dangerously. Jung-hee immediately wanted to go to Shi-woo's place, but Captain Jang wanted to stop her because the situation was very complicated. However, Jung-hee insisted on confirming that her daughter was still safe. Captain Jang had to send a subordinate to accompany Jung-hee. On the way, Jung-hee suddenly received a call from her colleague. Min-seo had just woken up and wanted to see Jung-hee immediately, but Jung-hee was on her way to pick up her daughter, so Jung-hee made an appointment to go to the hospital later. Suddenly, Jung-hee remembered what Min-seo said before she was hospitalized. Min-seo suspected that the artist who moved to the building 7 months ago was Zigger Killer. Coincidentally, this characteristic matched Shi-woo. While Jung-hee was confused, she received a call from Shi-woo. He met her at the entrance of the building to send Sua back. After Shi-woo hung up, he called Ho-chan. Because Ho-chan had betrayed him, Shi-woo wanted to give him a gift. Shi-woo asked Ho-chan to come to the entrance of the building to receive it. A moment later, Jung-hee met Shi-woo in front of the gate, but he did not bring her daughter. He was still holding a knife and waiting. At this time, Jung-hee confirmed her guess that Shi-woo was the person Min-seo had mentioned. Jung-hee rushed to catch Shi-woo, but he deceived her that her daughter was in his hands. Jung-hee was immediately controlled by Shi-woo. She was handcuffed and taken to the car. At that moment, Ho-chan ran over, but he could only watch his wife become a hostage. Shi-woo called Ho-chan and said that he was now standing between two choices, saving his wife or his daughter. At this time, Ho-chan was standing between two very difficult choices. Both of them were his most beloved people. Shi-woo wanted Ho-chan to bring Sua to him, because what Shi-woo needed was Sua's perfect hands, not Jung-hee's life. Shi-woo only gave a suggestion, and the final choice belonged to Ho-chan. Jung-hee signaled that there were police on the other side so she would be fine. Ho-chan should take care of his daughter. Shi-woo then hung up and drove Jung-hee away. Jung-hee sat in the car and wondered where Shi-woo was taking her. He quickly realized that she was signaling her teammates, and he also discovered that someone was following her. He then took her to a hotel. His subordinates immediately informed Captain Jang that Jung-hee had become a hostage. Captain Jang ordered his subordinates not to lose track of Jung-hee. Officer Lee immediately got out of the car and followed them to the motel. However, he discovered that the motel had a back door. As a result, he lost track of Jung-hee. He quickly informed Captain Jang of this. At this time, Shi-woo took Jung-hee to an abandoned house. He threw her to the ground and took off her hood. Jung-hee asked where her daughter was. Shi-woo sarcastically said that Jung-hee and her husband were very similar because they only cared about their families. Jung-hee immediately objected that people without a family like him could not understand. That sentence touched Shi-woo's heart. He angrily held a knife and threatened Jung-hee. But now was not the time for her to die because she could exchange it for something more important to him. He wanted to turn Soo-ah into a part of his collection. Shi-woo accidentally discovered the digital watch on Jung-hee's hand. He seemed to understand that she was trying to send her location to her husband. Shi-woo also guessed that Ho-chan was on his way here. Shi-woo calmly waited for Ho-chan to come. However, Jung-hee said that she knew Shi-woo was scared, so he acted crazy. Everything did not go according to the scenario he had thought of, so he left a stain on the picture he thought was perfect. Zigger Killer had never killed a man before, but now it happened. Moreover, Shi-woo failed because he let the victim survive. Shi-woo angrily grabbed Jung-hee and asked her what she meant. Jung-hee told him that Min-soo was still alive, but Shi-woo laughed and thought that Jung-hee was trying to manipulate him. But Jung-hee calmly told him to check Google. Shi-woo also decided to check online, and he saw that the news that Min-soo was alive had spread a few hours ago. Shi-woo angrily hung Jung-hee up. He planned to lock her in the room. He would go fix his mistake. At this time, Ho-chan came here, according to Jung-hee's location. He picked up a brick and rushed into the abandoned house to search. Here, Ho-chan discovered the handcuffs. Jung-hee had successfully escaped. However, Ho-chan also found the paintings in Shi-woo's work. They were assembled from many body parts. The only part missing was the left hand. Ho-chan realized that the position was for his daughter. Ho-chan angrily destroyed all the paintings. At this moment, he suddenly received a call from his wife. She was still safe and following Shi-woo. She told him to find their daughter. She would definitely catch the murderer. He agreed to his wife's suggestion. At the same time, he told her to be careful. She also reminded him of the same thing and hung up. After that, Ho-chan called Tae-min to inform him that the subordinate and the body in the car had been arrested by the police. The police were going to the attic to search because they knew the subordinate came to find Tae-min. Ho-chan asked Tae-min to leave the room. He immediately complied. As soon as Tae-min left, the police arrived. At this time, Tae-min realized that Ho-chan was not lying to him. Tae-min had escaped down the stairs. Downstairs, Ho-chan called the manager and told him something. The manager immediately led 2 guards to the attic. When he saw the police preparing to break the door, he was extremely panicked. Because the door was very expensive, the manager requested a search warrant, but the police could not issue a search warrant. The manager immediately ordered the guests to leave. After everyone left, Ho-chan appeared. He took the police equipment left behind and broke down the door of the attic. After Ho-chan entered, he borrowed a security camera to check. He discovered that Soo did not enter the building with Tae-min's subordinate, so Ho-chan assumed that his daughter was still in the basement. He immediately went to the underground parking lot. When the manager saw Tae-min going down the hall, he immediately approached and started a conversation. It turned out that Ho-chan had pretended to be Tae-min. He then asked the manager to chase the police out of the attic. At this time, Tae-min realized that something was wrong, so he quickly left. Tae-min received a notification that Ho-chan had broken into the room. Tae-min hurried back to the penthouse and found that all the security cameras were turned off. He wanted to restart them, but couldn't, so he felt extremely angry. At this time, he received a phone call from the prison informing him that he only had 2 hours left until his prison term ended. The police would come to pick him up. This made Tae-min even more worried. Tae-min called Ho-chan and asked what he wanted to do. Tae-min even threatened Soo-ah's life. But Ho-chan was no longer afraid because he was currently in the underground parking lot. Ho-chan remembered the route of Tae-min's subordinates. He followed that direction and discovered a restricted area. At this moment, Soo-ah's phone rang. Soo-ah's friend wondered what she was doing in the basement. Only now did the phone that the male student gave Soo-ah come into use. He called, but Soo-ah was tied up, so she couldn't pick up the phone. So the new male student called the girl's old phone. When Ho-chan learned that the male student was going to the basement, he found a light. Perhaps this was an important clue that would help him find his daughter. On the other side, the police were confused about where Jung-hee was taken. Suddenly, she returned to the station and reported that Min Seo was in danger. The police immediately set off. They had to act quickly because Shiwoo had arrived at the hospital. He pretended to be a doctor and went to Min Seo's room. After Shiwoo overheard the conversation between the two guards, he learned that it was thanks to Ho-cheon's first aid that Min Seo was able to survive. This made Shiwoo hate Ho-cheon even more. After Shiwoo broke into Min Seo's room, he immediately strangled her. Min Seo was just waiting for this moment, and she immediately pulled out a pen and stabbed Shiwoo in the hand. Now she had his DNA sample. Outside, the police force was entering the hospital. The place was surrounded. Shiwoo had taken a policeman hostage. Shiwoo stabbed the police officer and returned him to his teammates. After that, Shiwoo took the opportunity to escape. Luckily, he took the car to escape. Unexpectedly, Taemin was the one who helped Shiwoo deal with the police. After that, Taemin also took the car to chase Shiwoo. At this time, Jung-hee was reviewing the serial murder case because she wanted to find more evidence to accuse the Zigger killer. The number of his victims was not 4, but 11. In the collection at Shiwoo's house, there were 11 body parts. Only the left hand was missing to complete the set. Jung-hee realized that her daughter was being targeted. If the police continued to let Zigger killer escape, Soo-ah would be in danger. So Jung-hee decided to go and catch him herself. When Jung-hee went outside, she saw the police escorting Taemin's subordinate. Through their words, Jung-hee knew that the police officer was murdered in her building. The scene was most likely the attic room. Jung-hee suddenly remembered the words of the kidnapper last time. He also whispered the word attic in her ear. In addition, the police officer once told Jung-hee that he was supervising a released prisoner. That person lived in the attic. This made Jung-hee even more certain that the prisoner was involved in these troubles. Unexpectedly, Taemin's subordinate called Jung-hee back. Then he whispered a secret in her ear that he knew where her daughter was. She had to negotiate with him. If she uncuffed him, he would tell her where her daughter was. In return, Jung-hee had to find a way to prevent Taemin from getting out of prison again. Everyone thought the two were accomplices, but in fact, he had intended to betray his master for a long time. So Jung-hee and Taemin's subordinate came to an agreement. However, when Jung-hee got her daughter's position, she asked the police to capture Taemin's subordinate. He was extremely angry because he had been tricked. Jung-hee also promised him that she would not let him and Taemin stay in the same prison. After that, Jung-hee set out to find her daughter. At this time, the male student had come to Ho-cheon. Although the boy knew that Ho-cheon was a criminal, he had heard a lot about Soo-ah's father, so he knew that Ho-cheon was not a murderer. He explained the situation to Ho-cheon. The phone he secretly put in Soo-ah's bag had a location app installed. Based on that, he confirmed that Soo-ah was in this basement. Ho-cheon only needed to know up to here, and then he told the male student to go back first to ensure safety. When Ho-cheon received the message, he immediately went to Pon-seok and received a few items. Pon-seok wanted to go with Ho-cheon to solve the problem, but Ho-cheon remembered Dongju's ending. He did not want Pon-seok to be in danger, so he decided to go alone. When he arrived at the chemical room, he heard a noise inside. He immediately called out to his daughter. She also tried to answer. He tried to break the door to get in. Then he ran to his daughter. He was extremely happy to see his daughter again, but he did not forget to comfort her. At this time, Shiwoo returned home and discovered that the paintings were damaged. At this time, he was extremely angry. He was determined to find Ho-cheon to take revenge. When Shiwoo discovered that the police were coming, he tried to escape, but he was caught by Taemin. Shiwoo knew that Taemin had helped him in the hospital, so he thought that Taemin would not kill him. However, Taemin just did not want anyone to catch Shiwoo first. Taemin pulled out a knife and grabbed Shiwoo's neck. Taemin did not expect Shiwoo to be this weak. Taemin thought that he could end everything. Shiwoo suddenly shouted to stop. That sound attracted the attention of the police. Taemin had to drag Shiwoo into hiding first so that he would not be discovered by the police. Unexpectedly, the two villains later cooperated. They went to Ho-cheon and his daughter together. Shiwoo made a deal that he wanted Taemin to give him more time to complete his masterpiece. At the same time, Shiwoo would help Taemin kill Ho-cheon. After Shiwoo completed his masterpiece, he would become the greatest murderer in the world. At that time, Taemin could kill him to become a greater person. For Taemin, Shiwoo was the only stain on his career. Shiwoo had to die no matter what, but right now, he was just an ordinary murderer, so killing him would only dirty Taemin's hands. In the end, Taemin decided to agree to this proposal. Now, he was the one controlling the game. Back in reality, Ho-cheon was extremely surprised by the cooperation of the two demons. Taemin still told Ho-cheon that the mission he gave Ho-cheon still had time to complete. That meant Taemin wouldn't interfere in Shiwoo and Ho-cheon's fight. Ho-cheon pulled Soo-ah behind him. Shiwoo took out his weapon, but he attacked Taemin, who had just given him the chance. Although Taemin was a professional assassin, he was extremely unintelligent. Not only was Taemin betrayed by Ho-cheon, but now he was also tricked by Shiwoo to to the point of almost losing his life. Taemin angrily rushed to attack Shiwoo, but he was hit by some iron chains. Shiwoo madly hit Taemin. Hocheon took that opportunity to lead Suah away. After Shiwoo finished off Taemin, he chased after Hocheon. Shiwoo had followed them to the rooftop. Hocheon hid his daughter in a corner and then rushed out to lure Shiwoo, but Shiwoo insisted on finding Suah. Hocheon wanted to know the reason. Shiwoo also didn't hesitate to tell Hocheon that he had to complete his masterpiece. It was a masterpiece created from 12 body parts. Hocheon criticized Shiwoo as a pervert, but he thought he was a great artist. Shiwoo was proud that because of him, his victims could enjoy fame. If people did not mention Zigger Killer, the girls he killed would all be unknown people in society. However, for Hocheon, Shiwoo was just a pitiful person. Because Shiwoo saw himself as unknown, he tried every way to make himself known. Shiwoo was extremely angry when he heard that. He wanted to show Hocheon that he was superior to others. Shiwoo pulled out a knife and rushed into the fight with Hocheon. Shiwoo pressed Hocheon against the wall. When Suah saw her father in danger, she panicked and accidentally made a sound. Shiwoo immediately left Hocheon and rushed to grab her. However, he discovered that her left hand was injured. It turned out that it was all Taemin's plan. He wanted to see Shiwoo's disappointed face when he couldn't complete the work. That's why Taemin agreed to negotiate. Shiwoo was extremely angry, but he was suddenly attacked by Taemin. How could a professional killer like Taemin be easily defeated? Taking advantage of the two killers' fight, Hocheon hurriedly took his daughter and escaped. After Taemin finished off Shiwoo, he blocked Hocheon's way. Originally, killers would not leave witnesses alive. Whether Hocheon listened or not, Taemin could not let him escape death. Hocheon quickly threw a smoke bomb to blind Taemin for a while. Then he found a way to drop his daughter down. After the smoke cleared, Taemin discovered Hocheon was running away. Taemin immediately went to Hocheon. Hocheon desperately stopped Taemin so Suah could have more time to run away. Taemin quickly defeated Hocheon and pulled up the rope, but the rope was just a diversion. Suah had already escaped through the emergency exit. She listened to her father's instructions. She ran straight out the building's gate, where someone would come pick her up. Hocheon also told Pansok to wait there. At this time, Jung-hee went to the location designated by Taemin's subordinate, but there were only bloodstains on the floor. No one was there anymore. Jung-hee continued to go up to the attic room, but she didn't discover anything new. There were only security cameras that had been turned off. At this time, Jung-hee implicitly understood how her husband had been controlled. Suddenly, Jung-hee received a notice that her superiors asked her to go down to Shiwoo's room. They wanted Jung-hee to determine whether Shiwoo's work in this room was the same as what she had seen. Indeed, this work was very similar, but this was a real model, not a drawing. One thing that made Jung-hee wonder was whether the work Shiwoo was referring to was these exhibits or the paintings from last time. Jung-hee speculated that if Zigger Killer still left the sample here, he would definitely come back. Captain Jang told his subordinates to lie in ambush around the room. They had to wait for Shiwoo to appear to arrest him. A while later, the police received a report from Pansok that he had found Suah, but Hocheon was still on the rooftop. When the police heard the news, they immediately rushed to the scene. At this time, Hocheon realized that Taemin was bleeding profusely, so Hocheon helped Taemin stop the bleeding. This action made him very confused. Taemin wondered why he was trying to kill Hocheon, but Hocheon saved him. Hocheon explained that he did it because of his conscience as a firefighter. Hocheon wanted to call an ambulance, but Taemin was an assassin, so he did not allow himself to accept help. Taemin only told Hocheon that it was not over yet, because Shiwoo was not completely dead. He gradually regained consciousness and rushed towards Hocheon with a knife. Luckily, Taemin took the knife for Hocheon. He was converted by Hocheon, but there was still a devil standing there. Shiwoo started Hocheon to pull out his knife, but Hocheon knew that if he did, Taemin would die immediately. Shiwoo asked Hocheon what he was trying to do. Was Hocheon saving the person who wanted to kill him? At this time, Hocheon taught Shiwoo a valuable lesson. Maybe for him, killing someone was great, but for Hocheon, saving someone was extraordinary. Killing someone was easy, but saving someone was difficult. At this moment, the police arrived, so Shiwoo was scared and quickly ran away. Taemin reminded Hocheon that as long as Shiwoo was alive, everything was not over. The police came to Hocheon and called an ambulance for Taemin. Taking that opportunity, Taemin sneaked out and hid in the car. With wounds all over his body, Shiwoo was in pain, but when he saw the blood, he regained his excitement. Shiwoo had to finish his work. He brought the paintings to the square. He believed that tomorrow, when everyone woke up, they would see his greatest work. However, this work had one flaw, which was the left hand. Shiwoo wondered where he could find a pair of perfect hands. Shiwoo looked at his hands and realized that he was a perfect person. Therefore, his body parts all matched the picture. Shiwoo did not hesitate to take an axe and cut his left hand and use it as a model. He also used his own blood as paint. Finally, Shiwoo completed his masterpiece. At this time, Hocheon also also arrived. Ho-cheon realized that Shiwoo was still trying to complete his sick work. Ho-cheon wanted to put out the evil fire with a fireman's hose. He washed away the works. This action turned Shiwoo's efforts into nothing. He looked at Ho-cheon with an angry look. Shiwoo threw an axe at Ho-cheon, but now he had no strength left. Ho-cheon told Shiwoo that everything was over, but Shiwoo denied it. He thought that Ho-cheon's actions were bringing him back to the starting point. Then, Shiwoo would use his next life to complete his unfinished work. He would have to live in prison for the rest of his life. At this time, the police came to arrest Shiwoo, but they saw him smiling. Although Shiwoo could not let others see him, he had completed his greatest work. The Zigger killer case finally came to an end. Everyone returned to their normal lives with peace of mind. The two murderers, both mentally ill, were put in the same prison. Shiwoo was still obsessed with creating his masterpiece. Meanwhile, Tae-min was obsessed with killing his enemies. That night, Tae-min went to Shiwoo's room and killed him. Ho-cheon had a happy life with his wife and daughter. Good people always receive their just rewards. That's it for today. See you in the next clip.